For the record, my name is Brian Worrell, District 4 City Councilor, and I'm the Chair of the Boston City Council Committee on Ways and Means. Today is April 28, 2025. It is 10:09 a.m. This hearing is being recorded. It is also being live streamed at boston.gov/city-council-tv and broadcast on Xfinity Channel 8, RCN Channel 82, and FiOS Channel 964. The Council budget review process will encompass a series of public hearings beginning in April and running through June. We strongly encourage residents to take a moment to engage in this process by giving testimony for the record. You can do this in several ways. One, attend one of our hearings and give public testimony. We will take public testimony at the end of each departmental hearing and also at 2 hearings dedicated to public testimony. The full hearing schedule is on our website at boston.gov/council-budget. You can give testimony in person, here in the chamber, or virtually via Zoom. For in-person testimony, please come to the chamber and sign up on the sheet near the entrance. It will be taken at the beginning of this hearing following the panelist presentation. Individuals will be called on in the order in which they signed up and will have 2 minutes to testify. For virtual testimony, you can sign up using our online form on our Council Budget Review website, or by emailing the committee at ccc.wm@boston.gov, or by emailing Karishma Chauhan at karishma.chauhan@boston.gov. You will receive the Zoom link and your name will be added to the list. When you are called to testify, please state your name and affiliation or residence and limit your comments to a few minutes to ensure that all comments and concerns can be heard. Second way you can testify. Email your written testimony to the committee at ccc.wm@boston.gov. The third way you can testify is submit a 2-minute video of your testimony through the form on your website. For more information on the City Council budget and how to testify, please visit the City Council budget website at boston.gov/council-budget. Today's hearing is on dockets number 0822 through 0830, FY26 budget for the Office of Equity, Black Male Advancement, Women's Advancement, and Fair Housing and Equity. These matters were sponsored by Mayor Michelle Wu and referred to the committee on April 9, 2025. Today, I'm joined by my council colleagues in order of arrival, Councilor Murphy and Councilor Flynn. We have received a letter of absence from Councilor Coletta Zapata. I would now like to turn it over to today's panelists to introduce themselves and to get into their presentation. The floor is now yours.
Good morning to the council. Good morning to members. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Good morning to the council. Good morning to members of our community who may be watching from home. My name is Mariangeli. I am the Chief of Equity and Inclusion, and I'm here joined by executive directors of 2 of our departments in the larger cabinet. First, Dana Alice to my right, who's the head of the Women's Advancement team, as well as Frank Farrow, who leads our Black Male Advancement office. Councilor, are we gonna be able to see the slides? Or, okay.
Yeah.
Please.
Yep, there they go.
Oh.
Is that the slide? No?
No, the PDF that we shared.
They're pulling it up now.
No worries.
Right.
I think if it's okay with you, I can start giving a bit of an intro and then get into the slides.
Perfect.
Does that work?
Yes.
Okay. I want to first start by acknowledging that I think it speaks volumes about our collective commitment to this work that the council has chosen the Equity Cabinet as one of the kickoff cabinets to present on the budget, and I'm looking forward to what we learned together today. Before getting started, however, I do want to acknowledge a presence that will not be with us today, our dear Bob Terrell, who passed away earlier this year, our head of the Fair Housing and Equity Commission. Bob loved the budget season. Nobody prepared more than Bob for budget hearings, but I know that we'll be making him proud today as we unapologetically talk about the work that we do in the Equity Cabinet. Okay, so I will first give a brief overview of what the Equity and Inclusion Cabinet collective goals are, our theory of change, speak briefly about some initiatives that we have been prioritizing since FY23, and then I will pass the mic to my colleagues, both Frank, Dana, and then it will come back to me in that order to close out with some remarks for the Fair Housing Commission as well. The Equity Cabinet's mission is in alignment to the mayor's vision of building a home for everyone. And how we add to that work is by asking ourselves who has not been a part of that definition for years, who has been historically or presently excluded from that definition of everyone. And we work with communities to ensure that we are getting services, programs, policies to everyone in that sense. And today you'll hear plenty of examples of how we do that. A little bit of how, just presenting the theory of change. First, we have an incredible set of agencies that we work with as colleagues, and we provide E&I services to them. We use the term E&I, equity and inclusion, for short, to talk about trainings, to talk about technical assistance, to talk about brainstorming opportunities that we have as well, and partnering for different programming. We also offer targeted programming when programming does not already exist in other departments across the city of Boston. And again, you'll hear from my colleagues here a lot about what those programs are. And last but not least, because we understand that the power lies in the coalition building that happens in our communities, we use our resources as a municipality to ensure that the work that has been happening for years is connecting to the government and that we're connecting with them as well. So a little bit of that trust building through coalition building happens as well. Here are the different departments that you'll hear from today. Again, Women's Advancement, Black Male Advancement, and Fair Housing, as well as the Equity Office this morning. And then starting at 2 p.m., you'll hear from the rest of the offices, which are the Disabilities Commission, the LGBTQ Advancement Office, Immigrant Advancement, Language Access, as well as Human Rights. Okay, now for the Office of Equity and Inclusion priorities. First, we have the Office of Cultural Affairs, which thanks to Councilor Mejia and Councilor Worrell for launching this initiative last year. We are in a much better place now and are excited to share some wonderful partnerships that we've had with the community. We are then going to talk about the E&I Academy, the E&I Coordination Network, the work of reparations, and the work of technical assistance. And my hope is to close out with just a small impact statement that we have to share about the importance of the work that we're doing now. So on cultural affairs, some of the work that we did in FY25 that were focused on actual spending dollars is a work on the language preservation program that we'll be launching very soon. Looking forward to working with the council on this partnership. Some back to school programming that we do specifically with the cultural communities represented in this office, as well as a mini grants program. And we plan to do the same for FY26, as well as add other cultural celebrations that we were not able to be a part of last year, but that we were a part of now. You could also think about the technical assistance that we provide this way. We work with the Arts and Culture Department, with parks, with other agencies to ensure that we are in selection committees, that we are building out RFPs with others, et cetera. So we're incorporating that cultural competence into other agencies' work. Now to the E&I Academy, which has been an incredible program that has evolved for now 3 years. We have now graduated over 120 staff that work for the city of Boston, touching more than 30 departments. And we are equipping them with the resources, tools, and networks to understand why, and how to better serve residents from backgrounds that are different from theirs. These are not just trainings, these are opportunities for members who work for the city of Boston to opt into opportunities to truly learn how to reach across the aisle so that we're changing the culture of City Hall. And we plan to do the same in E&I and the Academy this year, hoping to double our number of touch points so that we can get to all departments by the end of FY26. If you'd like to learn more, we have our impact report attached in the slides, and we can happily share them with the community. They're also on our website. The E&I Coordination Network, which I have been talking to the council now for a couple of years, this image now shows where we are. Originally, it was intended to have one E&I manager in every single cabinet, so that you can imagine a network of E&I officers working throughout the city of Boston in coordination with one another, something that we talked about with other cities. And when what happens with the work of E&I is that oftentimes it falls on an individual or a group of people to do all the work and the heavy lifting. Here in the city of Boston, under our mayor, we're committing to this being spread out as a responsibility for everyone. And so if you look at the inner circle, those are the specific, the outer circle represents the offices that are already in the network. And for FY26, we plan to use already available dollars to hire 2 more E&I managers that will share some portfolios and work with our offices of and streets and environment as well as others. Our very important work of reparations, majority of our dollars in FY25 went to what many of the people here already know about, the Phase 1 report, which covers 6 units of study for over 400 years. And in FY26, these are some of the work that we plan to fund with the dollars that are already allocated. And we are in consistent communication with the reparations task force to make sure that this is in alignment to the work that they're hoping to do. Technical assistance program, which essentially costs no dollars except for the personnel that's already available, since we work in partnership with the departments under the equity cabinet. In FY25 alone, we were able to impact 14 different programs, practices, and policies throughout the city of Boston, and we plan to do the same in FY26 and keep going with that work. And here are just 2 examples of some of the partnerships that we've had. And I wanted to present a different view of our work in this last slide. I think in this moment where we're constantly under attack as people who work in the space of diversity, equity, and inclusion, I want to show how much impact we've had in the last 3 fiscal years and how we plan to not change any of that. We plan to do the same thing moving forward. For those 3 years, we funded over $7 million worth of services and programs out in the community because our departments are connected to those organizations that are already doing the work. We're not here to reinvent the wheel. We work directly with trusted members of the community to ensure that they're continuing the work. Those $7 million have supported programs such as parent support programs, community-based research, cultural celebrations, ESOL, civic engagement classes. And again, this is encompassing all 9 departments under the Equity and Inclusion Cabinet. And in FY26, we plan to sustain this model, as is the priority of our mayor and our administration, that we continue to work alongside our community members. And with that, I'll pass it over to Frank Farrow.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Worrell, councilors. This FY26 budget for the Office of Black Male Advancement recommended at $2 million. This proposal outlines our impact, priorities, and vision for deepening our investment in the lives of Black men and boys in the city of Boston. Our mission is to improve outcomes and reduce systemic barriers to advancement for Black men and boys living in the city of Boston. We have 6 key priority areas: economic opportunity and workers' empowerment, affordable housing and pathways to home ownership, education and youth advancement, public health and wellness, fatherhood and families, community safety and returning citizens, as well as equity and racial justice. For FY26, Our office is requesting level funding to give us the stability to continue the work that we've been doing the past couple of years in the city of Boston. For the overall budget, it includes $125,000, which will be allocated to continue for phase 2 of the equity study, as well as $25,000 that will go to stipends for commissioners on the Black Men and Boys Commission. Thank you to the advocacy of the council for both of those. And then we'll have a little over $700,000 that will be remain included in BPS's budget to continue and expand the work we're doing in partnership with the Division of Student Support through our My Brother's Keeper program.
Point in that direction.
Which way? This way? Where's my point?
It's working fine for me.
This one?
It's working just fine for me.
Okay, now I'm on.
Helps me. Okay.
Yeah, you just say next slide.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you can go to the previous slide. Thank you. So through our My Brother's Keeper program, we have served over 1,000 young black males through our initiatives. We have an MBK Fellows program where we have college internships at UMass Boston, New England School of Law, Harvard University, Roxbury Community College, and Howard University. We have an MBK Ambassador program, which is a cohort of high school students that act as leaders and support for younger students in BPS to ensure that they have the proper support and peer leadership. We conduct annual college tours. This month we held 2 HBCU tours where we brought over 150 BPS students to visit HBCUs. And since the inception of the office and the partnership with BPS, we have an 87% success rate of graduation and continuing on to colleges for students that are connected to our program, as well as ensuring that we're supporting with, through the Opportunity Lab, college essays, college application, as well as scholarships. We have a number of our students that have received scholarships and full rides through the connection with our office. Annually, we provide over $500,000 in grants through our Community Empowerment Grant Program. Last year, fiscal year, we funded 63 organizations that supported over 14,000 individuals in the community. This year, we are funding 53 organizations that are working to advance and improve outcomes for black men and boys throughout the city of Boston. Next slide. Through our Project Opportunity Program, we've provided 81 individuals access to free Corey sealing, as well as through our employment and resource fairs, supported over 175 Boston residents, as well as in partnership with the Office of Returning Citizens, over 200 residents that are looking for employment, housing, and other resources. Starting last year, next slide, please. We also have technical assistance as we noticed that there was a gap and a need from the community partners that we were working with around technical assistance. So we developed a capacity building institute to support community-based organizations with the tools, training, and resources to strengthen their impact. In this fiscal year, we launched a mentoring training institute for organizations that are working with our youth to make sure they're equipped with the tools to provide mentoring and deepening their impact and support for individuals. For both, we have over 100 organizations that are connected and receiving these supports. And then we also have our Corey Sealing Project, where we work with legal entities to provide free legal assistance to individuals to seal their quarries and legal records to make sure that they have access to employment and other like. Next page, please. Back one page. Thank you. And through a few other initiatives, we have our equity study. We launched phase 1 of the equity study, where we're working to look across the city for data related to Black men and boys, how we're serving them, policy, program, resources, and those findings will drive data and recommendations for phase 2 that we're continuing in FY26. We're in the process of launching a data dashboard, which will be a centralized public data dashboard to outline and show improvement and impact across city departments in partnership with our office, as well as do it in departments that we're working with across the city. And we have a partnership network for community partners where we bring in different resources and information, as well as to provide an opportunity for collective action and impact amongst the local community organizations that we are working with. Next slide, please. And then also, through our Black Men and Boys Commission, who are 21 members of our community that are advocates, that are advisors, who provide a great deal of support and guidance, and who are leaders in their respective fields. We continue to work with them to push policy, budget, and through their work recently, the commission has made over 20 policy and budget recommendations totaling $34 million to enhance Black men and boys in the city of Boston. They have successfully advocated for the BMA equity study and the codification of the Office of Black Male Advancement this fiscal year. And also thanks to the support of our mayor and obviously the city council for helping us move that forward. Next slide, please. And then our goals for FY26. Our office assists the mayor and the Black Men and Boys Commission in determining budget and policy priorities. We monitor and advise city agencies and departments on issues pertaining to Black men and boys. We provide recommendations on projects and programs that promote equity for Black men and boys, which are currently not being implemented by existing city agencies. Performing outreach, communication, and liaison for Black men and boys with community groups and organizations. Working with all city departments, agencies, commissions, and offices to ensure Black men and boys are represented at all levels of city government, as well as serving as an information broker, strategic data collection, maintenance, and reporting throughout the city. Next slide. And as I wrap up, just want to name, although our office is fairly new, we know that the inequities are generational. I truly believe if we are intentional around addressing the disparities and developing sustainable solutions, we can see positive outcomes. Whether it's education, housing, health, economic opportunity, that would not only benefit this current generation, but future generations of Black men and boys in the city of Boston. Through the office, with the support of the Equity Cabinet and our leadership of Chief Solis Severa, our Mayor, Mayor Wu, our Black Men and Boys Commission, City Council, our community partners and residents, we remain committed to improving outcomes and reducing systemic barriers to advancement for Black men and boys living in the city of Boston. Thank you to the council for today. Thank you. Now I'll pass it over to my colleague. You want this one?
I think the next one's fair housing in the slides.
Thank you, Frank. Okay, my role in this moment is to speak briefly on the work of fair housing and equity. I'll be sharing some of the work that we did on FY25 and the goals of FY26. Next slide, please. In FY25, we were focused on staffing. We were able to get more investigators into the very needed roles so that we can continue doing the work there. We were able to close 30 cases, and you'll hear in a second what our goals are for FY26. We were able to kick off and build a real cadence of work around the affirmatively furthering fair housing programming that we have. Is with one of the first executive order that Mayor Michelle Wu signed in 2022, and our dear colleague Bob Terrell was able to truly launch it, and we will make sure that it continues. And we hosted over 30 events, simply educating the public around what their rights are when it comes to fair housing. Next slide. And FY26 goals, we plan to double we plan to double the cases that we close, and when it comes to investigations, we want to expand the outreach so that we can continue to work with communities and helping them understand what their rights are and what the resources available to them are as well. And we have already started, but we plan to do a much better job in FY26 of developing training and training our colleagues across the other agencies so that they can implement principles of fair housing into their work. Just want to make a note, as folks know, a lot of the budget for our Fair Housing and Equity Office does come from operational budget, but a majority of it also does come from the federal government. So we are very carefully monitoring those any changes to that policy, to those policies, and but we know and we are confident that we can continue doing this work with the necessary staff and resources for FY26 and beyond. And now I'll pass it off to Dana.
Good morning from the Office of Women's Advancement. I'm Dana Alice, the Executive Director. This year, can we do the next slide? Thank you. Just wanted to speak on the mission of Women's Advancement, to uplift the voices and advance the lives of women and girls throughout the city, programs and policies, and to remove barriers and provide resources, including sharing resources, advocacy initiatives, and legislative tools to the women throughout the city of Boston. So all of our initiatives are rooted in sustainable and impactful change. Next slide, please. This year, just to reiterate our initiatives: health, safety, economic equity, and representation. So that's how we sort of align our work. This year, FY25, we had a bit of transition throughout the team through staffing. But first, in our priorities for health, we are expanding on the menstrual equity work that we did in the last year. So we've worked with animation providers to be able to expand menstrual equity access throughout BCYF, and partnering for BPS animations throughout the city and free menstrual products. Next slide. We've partnered around grants in 2025 with the Office of LGBTQ+ advancements to support Boston families, and working closely with the Boston Public Health Commission around their mental health epidemic and increasing access for women in the city of Boston. Next slide. Last year, we also had the privilege to work with BPHC around the Empower Her inaugural health conference for and about Black women. In January 2025, we joined the LGBTQ+ task force at a conference talking about the health findings for LGBTQ+ women, and sponsoring that. In 26, we want to continue to cultivate internal and external partnerships to expand awareness of our office and support organizations that share the city's commitment. Next slide. around safety. In the year of 2025, we supported the Health Commission in hiring the new director of the Domestic, Sexual, and Gender-Based Violence Prevention Initiative, and are looking forward to working with that new director in 2026 around tackling the issues around gender-based violence and sexual assault. We've been intentional this year in including girls in our programming, and to that end, we've strengthened a collaboration with Boston Public Schools to expand initiatives and expand our network. And we've also partnered with the Office of Community Safety for a specific summer-based activation initiative for girls. Next slide. Our annual Representation Award is our Extraordinary Women Initiative, where we honor about 40 women each year, sometimes a little more, sometimes a little less. And we work with these women throughout the year in working groups to inform our policy initiatives and other collaboration work in the city. So our girls mentorship is something we've expanded this year. We've partnered with local schools and community organizations to attend career days and connecting Boston youth with women leaders across industries to inspire future pathways. In FY26, we will integrate interns into our office initiatives and partner with the BPS schools to help support the college tours and to further expand our career day involvement. Next slide. We also are expanding our internal and external partnerships. We've joined several community partners throughout the city to raise awareness. We've had a panel for hoops, arts and culture, an equity day that we've celebrated with the Women's History Center. We collaborate with the Equity Department for Boston Gives Back and hosted our own cohort of volunteers and speak out at different conferences and host programming throughout Women's History Month. For economic equity, and this year we were able to relaunch WeBoss and are looking forward to expanding those programming. It formerly was a week-long of programming in October, and we are expanding it now to quarterly events, starting with the kickoff in March, and we'll host a golf clinic, networking mixers, and building on our relationship with the Cabinet of Economic Opportunity and Inclusion and the Office of Small Businesses. For our internal and external partnerships around economic equity, we're continuing the Women Worker Rights Programming in collaboration with the Worker Empower Cabinet, and looking forward to working with them more in 2026, specifically around low-wage women workers. And in conclusion, sorry, that's also about our efforts about addressing the gender wage gap that we do in collaboration with the Boston Women's Workforce Council. And in conclusion, we delivered measurable progress across health, equity, representation, and safety, relaunched WeBoss, expanded our menstrual equity programming, and honored over 40 women at our extraordinary event. Our partnerships have strengthened citywide impact, and our programs continue to evolve to meet the needs of Boston women and girls. As we move into FY26, we're looking to deepen youth engagement and further embedding equity into every aspect of our work. Thank you all.
Thank you. A lot of great work in everyone's department in the cabinet. Also just want to just quickly take a moment of silence for Bob Tyrell, if we can, and just acknowledge all the great work that he has done for the city of Boston. So please, if you could take just a moment of silence for Bob Tyrell. Thank you. I also want to acknowledge that we've been joined by my council colleagues, Council Weber and Council Braden. We'll now go to public testimony on Zoom and then go to my council colleagues for questions We'll start off with Kelly Vieira. Kelly, when you hear your name called, please raise your virtual hand. You'll be selected as a panelist. If you can unmute yourself, give your name, any affiliation and/or residence, and then you will have 2 minutes. There's no one on Zoom? Okay. We'll go to my council colleagues, no one on Zoom, starting with Councilor Murphy. Councilor Murphy, the floor is yours.
Thank you all for being here and for your presentation. And Chief, I do agree. I think he picks the the important departments to come first. So thank you for highlighting that. Thank you for all the work you do. Some of the questions I think you touched on with your opening statements, but I'll just go through. I just have a couple questions for each, and then just to get them on the record, and if you can just elaborate on some of the questions I have. So for the Office of Equity, how does the FY26 budget allocation for your office compare to last year at FY25? What specific initiatives will this funding support going forward? And any metrics or outcomes, like how are we gauging, right? What are we doing to make sure that the paths we took last year in the 25 programs to justify the current proposals? And how are you coordinating with other city departments? I know you touched on it, and I do think your office and many of your departments too need to work with every city department. So I'm glad you kind of touched on that already, but how do we ensure that those equity principles are integrated across all services that our city provides? And what mechanisms are in place to assess the effectiveness of these collaborations?
Thank you, Councilor. We firmly believe that we can have the greatest impact if we get every agency to plan backwards, if you will, to think about the most vulnerable, most excluded communities first, and design plan programs, policies that way. And so I appreciate you saying that, because that is where we really spend a lot of time. As for what is different between FY25, 26, in an effort, because we understand that we also have to be very responsible fiscally this year as well. As last year and the year before that too, but this year in particular, we want to prepare for worst case scenarios. Mm-hmm. And so in an effort to ensure that every department and the equity cabinet has the operational functions that they need, such as policy, communications, admin, and finance work, we are centralizing some of those operations first. So you may see women's advancement loses a position, but that's because that position will be now serving women's advancement and other departments in the equity cabinet and offering the functions that right now not everybody has. Mm-hmm. And so we're preparing for that in those different ways and making those sacrifices when needed without changing the programming. And that I think is really important for the public to know.
Awesome. Thank you. Frank, thank you. I see you and your team out in the community. Like you said, you're a relatively new department, but I do think you've made an impact, a positive impact to the residents and the communities. So thank you for that. And you touched on like My Brother's Keepers, but what other primary programs or initiatives are planned for the FY26 to support Black men and boys in Boston? And how will the success of these programs be measured? And how are you engaging with community organizations and stakeholders to inform it on strategies and the programs you're working on? And are there plans to expand partnerships and outreach in the coming year?
Thank you, Councilor. So we have My Brother's Keeper program, Project Opportunity Initiative. We also have an Opportunity Lab, which is structured to provide support around academic support, college preparedness, FAFSA, college application support. We have a partnership with ORC. We provide Corey legal support as well. Mm-hmm. And so we're level funded So like these first few years, we're looking at how can we maximize our impact with the few programs we do have. We provide $500,000 to community-based organizations to expand our reach and impact. And so we are in the first phase of an equity study. So through the equity study, through this data dashboard is how we're going to be able to track metrics and outcomes. And then, you know, through our kind of advising and advocacy from our commission and work with the different departments, we'll be able to look to see where we're at, where we're making an impact in outcomes, and where we need to address to make more of an impact. So that's our goal. We have quarterly meetings with different departments in the city where we talk about the data. And so once we launch this data dashboard, get through the phase of the equity study, we'll have a better picture on where we're at and where we need to go going forward.
Awesome. Thank you for that. The Office of Women's Advancement, what are the key focus areas you're going to focus on? And I heard you when you explained this, but if you could talk a little bit more about how do you plan to address any identified gaps in services or support that you see for women in Boston?
Thank you. Could you give me the first question one more time?
Sure. What key focus areas is your office going to work on? And like, what are the resources that, I know you have a small budget, so it's not like I think you can do, but you do a lot. You're mighty. So thank you for that. But what are with the resources you do have, what areas do you focus on?
Well, as a small but mighty team, thank you. We do plan on focusing really on the economic equity. The relaunching of WeBoss, we were able to sort of tap into a significant network of women entrepreneurs that are eager to sort of spread their knowledge and resources throughout the city. So that's one aspect of it. The second aspect is the work that we look to further with the Worker Empowerment Center around low-wage women workers, especially given the times we sort of see ahead. And how do we sort of bridge the gaps? I talked a little bit about with our extraordinary women, we really like to sort of pull them together as working groups to hear what is needed, what can we share, because we don't have a large budget, but how do we sort of be the convener of these women throughout the city of Boston?
That's smart. I was a recipient of the first year many years ago, but I do think that network is important to keep them. You did touch on youth engagement. If you could just expand more, because I do think that's very important. But
So this year, when we relaunched WeBoss and we gave out our Extraordinary Women Awards, we were intentional about including girls. And we looked to expand on their engagement in those working groups. And as we sort of were at the hearing last week and we talked about gender-based violence, a lot of that prevention happens early on, and we hope to be able to have those conversations with those young girls.
yeah, and thank you for being here at that. I know you weren't technically, I guess, a panelist, but you were here through it all, and I know that you're a resource for that, so thank you for that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councilor Flynn, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to the administration panel that is here. I supported Frank, it's good to see you. I supported the stipend for the Black Men and Boys Commission. Are they currently receiving that stipend?
So in July 1st, that's when stipends will kick in.
Okay, and how much is that stipend for?
So it's $1,200 a commissioner.
Per year?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you, Frank. Thank you for the work you do. I enjoy going to your meetings. You conduct them in a professional manner. More work we have to do. Let me ask, I know later this afternoon we're going to talk about the Human Rights Commission. Can you give me an idea of how the commission is doing right now over the last several years?
Okay. Yeah, Councilor, we will give you more details at the 2 p.m., but essentially all the work that we do goes through a human rights lens, right? Equity work is human rights work. And so while the commission is not staffed, our office is not staffed, we have put in some dollars this year so that we can bring in a consultant and help us figure out how to merge that work even better. Unfortunately, we don't have those recommendations now, but we plan to have them later in the summer.
It hasn't had staff in a long time, is that accurate?
Correct.
What was the reason for that?
When I was first appointed into this role, there was a lot of staff changes, and I think it's really important that we are clear on what we're trying to accomplish with the office before we staff up.
Do we have commissioners?
Yes, but they have not met. I would have to get you the time, but they have not met in a while.
How come they haven't met?
Because there hasn't been staff there for no specific work, but we do have an open line where people do submit complaints or requests for information.
Thank you. I do respect that commission. Mayor Flynn was instrumental in, on that commission. I've met with you many times on the Human Rights Commission. I think it's a critical tool in this city. In fact, I probably have submitted more complaints to the Human Rights Commission than maybe any elected official on all kinds of various issues. If people want to get copies of them, I'm sure they're still available. So the reason I ask it, because I have respect for the role of that commission. I don't want to see it become non-existent.
Yep.
That's important. You mentioned reparations. Where is the reparations task force? What is happening with that?
We are we will, by the summertime, thinking of August, September, formally publish the first phase 1 report that studies the 400 years of the legacy of slavery in the United States and Boston. That is where we are in this moment. We've had now 4 consecutive public meetings where our grassroots partners have presented some of their research or their research presentations or their community-based plan and programming.
When is the next public meeting to discuss reparations task force or reparations-related issues?
Yep, May 12th, and the agenda for that meeting will be to do the second cohort of grassroots partners to do their presentations.
Is that online?
No, they're always in person, but we do always have an online option.
Okay. Over the weekend, I was at many events, but including a 50th anniversary of the Vietnamese community here in the United States. We celebrated a Puerto Rican veteran who's a friend of mine, Purple Heart recipient. We celebrated the tremendous role of the Chinese American community here in Boston. I also met with LGBTQ residents as well. Diversity is important in our city government. I guess my question is, are you concerned about the potential cuts from the federal government? And I know you are concerned, but what type of programs could be cut if the federal government implemented any change? Is there like a list of federal programs or federal funding we receive that, or the state receives that could potentially impact the mission?
To answer the first question, we definitely are concerned. Many of the residents that we work with and many of the backgrounds that we represent have used some of these federal programs ourselves and are connected to those. I think when it comes to our day-to-day operations, I think it's really important that the public knows that we as an administration remain committed to protecting those programmings that we know have an impact on our residents here in Boston. At the same time, we are very aware of the fear and the anxiety that are very real because of some of the funding issues that may be out there. So we are doing our best to track them and to understand impacts so that we can continue preparing for that. But our work will not change in FY26. I
know you mentioned in your opening statement Howard University. school I have great respect for. Can you tell me the partnership with Howard University? What is it? I would like to learn more about that.
So that's through our My Brother's Keeper Boston program. We have 2 fellows that are from Boston that are currently attending Howard University. And so they were interns in our office when they come back during the summer. During the school year, like when we do college tour, they support, and then they provide a kind of as big brothers to current high school students in Boston.
Thank you, Frank. I would love to see a historic black college have a presence here in Boston, whether it's a satellite office, a satellite educational program, or a major presence here. But I think it's critical long-term to have such a facility that does tremendous education work located here in the city of Boston. Mr. Chair, I have no further comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Flynn, and I agree. Would love to have, whether it's full HBCU or a satellite office here in the city of Boston. I just want to shout out Keith, who is working on that initiative as we speak, so I could more than happily pull you into those conversations as they progress. I do have a question for Executive Director Farrow. With the stipends, was there additional money given to the department for the $25,000 worth of stipends?
No.
Okay. All right, thank you. Council Weber, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. I guess getting to Councilor Flynn's last point on federal funding and what's going to happen. I mean, is the plan to just budget based on things being sane in the real world, and then if there is withdrawing of funding, we'll deal with it then? Just explain the thought process.
I think it's important to recognize that many of the communities that we represent in our cabinet have experienced this level of silencing, erasure, fear for many years, decades, centuries. And so prior to the current federal administration, we had many conversations where we discussed what would this look like and feel like. And I know that as an administration right now, as a local administration, we are taking every single challenge as seriously as we can, because we know the impact that it can have on the community. And we can control only what we can control. And so in our small cabinet, we are doing our part by ensuring that every department continues to have what they need, and that's why we're centralizing some of the operations. And I know colleagues across other departments that are doing very similar, and making similar decisions to ensure that everyone has what they need to continue the work that we're doing.
Okay, and I was looking at this New Hampshire federal court decision this weekend about the Department of Education's policy. Maybe this is more of a question for BPS, but as part of it, they're trying to end DEI in all of its forms, and it prohibits teachers from mentioning structural racism or saying anything that would make any member of one racial group feel bad or about the history of the country or the world or anything. Have you had any discussions? Because obviously diversity, equity, inclusion is probably written into all of your sort of programs here. Have you talked about that? What the Trump administration is doing? Have you talked to BPS about how they're going to handle these things?
I think collectively, many of our colleagues at BPS and others are all thinking about this while still focusing on the job. And I don't mean to dismiss your question. It's just like, because it's been a long time of similar erasure and policies that neglect our communities, we understand that we have to focus on what we can control right now. And so we are continuing to do the work. We are continuing to call things what they are, say what we need to say. And thankfully, we are working under a leadership and a mayor that is that knows history and that recognizes truth.
Okay, does the cabinet or any of the departments have grant writers? Or does the city, I mean, because if we're looking for outside funding, grant writing is something that can help with that, but.
Yeah, that's a good call. That's a good question. So so you'll hear from different departments, and each department will be able to speak to how they uniquely do it for their departments. But yes, we are definitely exploring as many avenues as possible to ensure that the work that we do continues. But we, as the Equity Cabinet, don't have unique grant writers.
Okay. Well, I think we should think about that as the, I know in the nonprofit world, that's how you get a grant writer and they pays for itself, and there's, obviously we're doing great work, and I think there's a lot of resources for that kind of, that are out there for those programs, and I think we should take, advantage of everything we can. So in terms of, last year, Bob Terrell talked very convincingly about fair housing testers and what how we can make a real dent in Section 8 voucher discrimination, housing discrimination, just by calling people, sending them emails saying, I'd like to rent a unit. So I guess how many, do we have testers now? How many testers do we have? And, if we don't have any, what are we doing to sort of bring that, Bob Terrell's sort of advice to us to ramp that program up?
Yeah, we all wish he was here, but
and lastly, who is? I mean, what are we doing to? Yeah, exactly. Who's doing Bob's work now, and what are we doing to fill his position?
yeah. So I'll start with your last question first. We obviously wanted to give time and space for grieving and for just healing in the staff. We have the staff necessary for sort of the operational needs to be met on a day-to-day basis, and we will be in the next couple of months searching for the new head of fair housing. In the meantime, we are sort of we have a deputy. We have Dwayne Watts there in the team as a deputy, and he steps in as lead in those moments. As for your first question, I want to get back to you on specifics on that. There have been many exploratory conversations, but as far as I know, there isn't anything public and official that has kicked off yet.
Okay, and then for the offices of Black Male Advancement and Women's Advancements, in the budget you see like contracting services, and I think for Women's Advancement it's like $250,000, and I think for Black Male Advancement it's closer to $900,000. Can you just explain, what those contract services funds are going to?
Well, I can start with ours. So when we do the menstrual equity project, we use that money to pay both for the subject matter experts that will be training the BCYF, the animation designers. We use it for a lot of our programming.
For the Office of Black Male Advancement, $500,000 of the contracted service goes to grants to community-based organization. We have several technical assistance programs. So we have contracts for our Capacity Building Institute that supports over 100 community-based organizations with technical assistance for expanding and sustaining their organizations. We have a mentoring initiative contract. We provide legal assistance for individuals with quarries looking to sell their quarries. And then we have funds that are allocated for our equity study that we are currently in phase 1 of, as well as we do a community empowerment summit, MBKU summit every year, HBCU college tours, as well as to support our Black Men and Boys Commission work.
Okay, I just one quick question. Thank you, Chair. And for the Office of Women's Advancement, Dana, are we doing anything around childcare funding for childcare? I know the state supposedly has funding and a program for childcare. And I don't know if this is the right play, if we're involved in that at all. I know that there was some childcare entrepreneur fund previously.
Yes, I was going to say, I think that used to live in the Office of Women's Advancement. It doesn't anymore. So Kristen McSwain leads that department.
Okay, thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Just want to acknowledge that Council Durkin has joined us, and just piggybacking off of one of Council Weber's questions around the grant writers. In the past, what the city has done, knowing that funding wasn't always there for our marginalized communities, the City of Boston established and launched the Boston Racial Equity Fund. And it's been on pause since 2021, but understanding that there could be need for more investments to some of the community, to the communities that you serve in your cabinet, are we looking to restart that fund?
Thank you for that question. Checked. Oh, thank you for the question. We've had exploratory conversations, and that has come up, and we're open. We're open to possibilities.
Okay. Thank you. Councilor Braden, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning. I had some questions about how the Cabinet of Equity and Inclusion intersects with other city departments, such as, say, the planning department that has come into the city. I hear a lot of concern about how planning initiatives and zoning initiatives have the potential to cause displacement of minority-owned businesses and displacement of low-income residents. Say a block is being developed and whatever. Are you engaged in that conversation with the planning department?
Thank you for that question. We could always be doing more work, so I sit in the Planning Advisory Council. I've been a member of that council for now more than a year, and so members of our team, so when I say our team, it's not just the equity offices, departments that are reflected here, have sat in some of the subgroups, such as the anti-displacement group that just released a plan. So we are advising in a lot of these different plans, and we also recognize that there's still a lot of work to do.
And then in relation to the testing and the fair housing testers, and I know last year Bob Terrell was advocating for for an attorney to be involved in the department to help, and we tried to get money for that. But where are we at? I think Bob's vision, out of respect for his work, I think it would be worth picking up where he left off and continuing to find good leader for that team, and then also giving them the resources that because discrimination in housing is a huge issue. And also, there are realtors in the field who are trying to do the right thing. And I heard a case last week of somebody who'd gone through the whole process with somebody who had a voucher holder, and the thing crashed at the end because of some snafu within our systems. So, it's discouraging for folks who want to do the right thing in terms of voucher holders, and then they get the whole way through, and the voucher covers the cost, but there's some little technicality that's missed. So in terms of just working in the whole fair housing space, is to really get in and partner with realtors in this conversation as well, because they have an experience of where it's challenging. They're easy to dump on, they don't appreciate being a punching bag. There's certainly lots of improvement in the system. So are we addressing those? Are we engaging in a conversation with all the partners, both on both sides of the question?
First, I would love to follow up on the specific issue if you have not already worked with any other.
I've been working with BHA.
Okay, great. So one of Bob's goal was to, and which is why we are going to be focusing on FY26, expanding our training, not only to our agencies alone, but to real estate companies as well. That was something that he did want to implement. We did not get there yet. We're not there yet. But this is something that we definitely look for in the new leadership in that office.
So in terms of resources to get there, what's your estimate of what you need to deliver on that commitment?
With the current staff in the investigations team and the outreach and training team, we have what we need for FY26, and I would love to have a conversation about FY27 in the future.
And then, I think we're in an unprecedented time. I don't think we should understate the challenges that we have. Like, we're talking about losing grants. This regime in Washington is going after DEI initiatives across the board. You're not even allowed, and they're stripping out references to women in leadership, women in the military, women that have done anything significant in the world. They're stripping it all out, and they basically want a white male-dominated world that women are expected to go back into the home and raise kids. Like, I don't think I'm overstating that. How do we hold our ground and uphold the role of women in our communities and in our city and in society in the face of this sort of really aggressive assault from the federal government? And what are you folks thinking about? It's a big question.
It is. It's a
We
very
can be
big
here for
question.
hours.
I think one of the things that's most important is that we're here in Boston and we have the Office of Women's Advancement to continue to sort of beat the drum when the federal government doesn't, and to share our resources and, I don't want to say collect, but to sort of hold space for our women and to push back against that here.
Yeah. Are we working, because the other our education eds and meds are facing the same onslaught. Like, are we working with other entities like the business community and the nonprofit community and our city administration together? Like, I have this notion, like, together we stand, divided we fall. Like, if we have a united approach, are we engaging conversations with the other folks in Boston who are having equal challenges in terms of, yeah.
The answer is yes. Through our strategic partnerships work under Stephen Chan, and which, to your question earlier, Councillor Weber, around grant writing, we do not have necessarily a grant writer, but that team is consistently like tapping into those opportunities, and so we don't miss out on that. And the work that Kristen McSwain has done in the early childhood work, the answer is absolutely yes. We are consistently looking for opportunities to build coalitions so that there isn't any one single entity working against these efforts that are trying to set us back.
Yeah. And in terms of the grant writing, like, you don't have someone in your office. So do we have a centralized grant writing support in the city, like from administration and finance or whomever, to help support departments write grants and get this money? We're leaving money on the table, so we shouldn't be doing that in this present climate.
Not specifically for grant writing, although I would reserve those questions for the finance cabinet, but we do get, when we are thinking, even for our mini grants programs, when we think of here's a specific need that we see in the community and we need to insert X intervention, we have partners that help us ensure that we are writing those correctly and that we can put them out into the community. As for funding, we can lean in more with the strategic partnerships teams through Stephen Chan.
Yeah, so, and that's the writing of RFPs and the timely putting out of RFPs, so that whatever little money we have for outside partnerships, that we get the money out the door quickly.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that's my time.
Thank you. Just want to acknowledge that the Vice Chair of the committee, Councilor Pepin, has also joined us. I'll now turn it over to Councilor Durkin for questions.
Thank you so much, Chair. And I just want to say, I think this cabinet is incredibly important to our success in the city of Boston. And obviously, the chief, I've gotten to know her work in a lot of different roles. And I just really appreciate the way that you lead and the way that you do it in such an inclusive way when, you know, often people don't have the information to really communicate. And I think that a lot of people in the city look to you to figure out how to communicate in a way that includes everyone. So thank you, Chief, or Mari, as I'll say. So thank you. And obviously, women's advancement and Black male advancement are incredibly important. And I guess off of sort of Councilor Braden's questioning, obviously we're headed for a moment where a lot of these things are on the chopping block in the federal landscape. And I believe that Boston, we have to be bold, we have to be a beacon for equity and inclusion. And I'm just kind of curious, are there jobs that are not yet hired yet that are, you feel that are needed? Does this budget really adequately fit what is needed in this moment? And what partnerships exist within the city to and I know that our mayor has, this is one of her core priorities, but I'm just curious sort of what partnerships need to exist that maybe haven't had to exist before.
I'd love to have the team answer this question as well, but I do want to acknowledge the fact that, like, we are in compliance as much as folks, as much as the federal government and others may want to share that we're not. We are following our AG's guidance, Massachusetts AG's guidance on this work, and so we continue to be in compliance. And I think I'm going to speak for myself and the direct connections that I have out in the community. I think what I could keep hearing is a need for consistency and ensuring that we are stable because there are too many things that feel unstable. And so for us, it's more important that we do what we're doing right now very well than to keep trying new things, because that is the intention, which is to keep us distracted. And right now we need to remain focused on the work that we are here to do with the community. But I don't know if folks want to say something different.
I would just echo the chief's sentiments around continuing to engage with our strategic community partners and listen to sort of what their needs are and how we can best sort of meet them through the city.
Thank you. And I think just for me, at the core of this work, I think that sort of there being partnership between the Disabilities Commission and Age Strong, and when I've been at senior centers in District 8, I know so many people are having trouble accessing SNAP, which I know they immediately think of Age Strong as the person, you know, as who to reach out to, but it really is an equity issue as well. And I think there's a lot of issues sort of with federal funding right now, and you know, SNAP fraud and other things that are impacting people so deeply. And I feel helpless as a city councilor to support these folks. And I know there's probably 1,000 more examples of something similar where I think cross, department interaction and coordination would be really helpful. Because I do think while we want to do the things that we've always been doing really well, I also think there is a charge right now to make sure that there's more collaboration, more partnerships, more communication across silos, because I think those that are most vulnerable in Boston deserve a city that's sort of like all working together, interconnected, and I think that's what we're all striving for. But it's just like, I think as a district councilor, I'm often out at, like, I'm doing building visits, I'm doing senior center visits, I'm doing all sorts of things where I feel like I'm gathering all this information about how unequitable both, a lot of times federal resources are or can be without proper support for folks. And I think that's kind of the charge right now, is like, how do we make sure that, like, when I receive feedback or any of us receive feedback, it's really getting to everyone. And I think in terms of language access, I think I have been thinking a lot, and I know this has been one of Councilor Mejia's pushes, just having there be sort of more it to be easier, because I know I'm traveling to a building and I find out like a day before, oh, you're gonna need a translator to be in this building, and I have no idea who to call at the city, so I just go out of pocket to get translation services. And I think a lot of us have had those experiences where government should be just working towards more connectivity, not less, and knowing that I could call a line, and I do think that's often what it is with the city council, is we do feel a little bit siloed from sort of the resources that might be available to other departments. But that's just my experience, and I think we're all just doing everything we can to connect with people. I know there's been a conversation around the codification of the LGBTQ plus advancement. I know that we're all very supportive of that, and figuring out a way to do that. This year, I think I'm fully in support of. And I just want to thank you all for your work. I know it's really important. Frank, we also go way back, so thank you for all of your work. I think there is a charge at the city and an excitement right now to work on all these issues and do as much as we can. But I really just want to offer my support to all of you. If there's any way I can be helpful in my district with making sure that the work that you guys are doing is amplified, and that if there are events that are happening, that those are amplified. I'm very much in support of that. And I think in terms of women's advancement, I do think there's so many other directions. It's all open to interpretation, sort of what that office looks like. I think the communication around like salary and like getting people sort of skilled up to ask for more money is great. I have heard from a lot of city workers who have taken that program that oftentimes they're in pay scale jobs and can't ask for more money. So figuring out how we either bring that to a broader audience or maybe what the next charge is. I do think there's a lot of ways in which women's advancement could really move into the next issue, which is really reproductive care and access. And I know that's something that could be, in true partnership with like everyone in the equity cabinet. But I do know about wait times for reproductive care in Boston because of the lack of reproductive care that's happening around the country. And I do think that is, if there was anything that was advancing women, it would be having them have access to health care. So I don't know if there are any plans for that, but I know I'm out of time. So thank you, Chair, and thank you for all your work. It's so meaningful, and any way that I can be helpful, let me know.
Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Councilor Pepin. The floor is now yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And let me see, it's still 11, so good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for the work you all do, by the way. Because when I review this packet and I'm looking at the slides, it's literally everything that our federal government is attacking right now, and the fact that you guys are staying strong in our city, making sure that this work continues. It just shows where our backbone is here in the city of Boston, so thank you for that. I've been a very big fan of this cabinet just because of the fact that I always call it the cabinet of do everything. And I feel like every other cabinet does, they're specific, there's property management, there's community engagement, there's whatever it is, you guys cover it all. So thank you for that. My first line of questions is for the Office of Black Male Advancement. Frank, you've been doing such a great job, and I was at the Mattapan Library recently. I was reading the Bay State Banner, and I read that you just released some grants to about 52 organizations. I wasn't able to see which organizations they were. I don't know if you've chosen them yet, but I'm curious, have you chosen them? I would love to know if there's any in my district. I love this type of initiative, so can you elaborate on what kind of program this is?
Yes, so this is our, we released the funds, we have the organizations, we can send a breakdown district by district, neighborhood by neighborhood where the organizations are. There are a number that would be in your district there. They're in Roxbury, Dorchester, Mattapan, Hyde Park, South End, Jamaica Plain. So there are, organizations across the city that are doing work around youth advancement, housing support, support around economic opportunity. And so we have this grant as a way to kind of provide the additional support to community-based organizations that are obviously supporting the city by doing the work and helping to expand the impact. And then we also, this year, we matched it with the technical assistance program. So not only does every organization that's funded through the grant receive technical assistance, the organizations that we're not funding is receiving technical assistance and support. So going forward, they can have better opportunity to receive funding, not only through our office, but other city departments, state, federal, and kind of help sustain and build out their capacity.
That's amazing. And it's funny, when I was reading this, I had just finished inviting, there's an organization called A Young Man with a Plan.
Yep.
In Hyde Park. And they're actually coming to speak to the counselors this Wednesday. So if you, I'm pretty sure.
We're connected.
You're
Yeah.
connected. So I wanted to make sure that there was that connection. I shouldn't have even thought about it.
Yeah.
You're on top of your work, but they will be here in City Hall on Wednesday. So I just think about organizations like that continue to help our Black and brown, Latino young men in high school that just need some guidance.
Yeah. We work with them closely. I'm actually going to be visiting their site in a few weeks.
Good.
And we actually helped them expand their location in Hyde Park through some funds we had through our MBK program last year.
That's amazing. Yeah, they have a great space, so you're gonna have a good time out there.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. For Chief Solis, I would love to, I kind of want to get a glimpse of how your cultural liaisons are working at the moment. I'm pretty sure that their work has gotten a little tougher in the past few months. What kind of, are they getting any different type of training in the as a result of the new year? What kind of resources do they need? I'm thinking specifically, I have a large Haitian population in my district. Your Haitian cultural liaison is amazing. So I just want to make sure that they're suited and ready to serve our people.
Thank you, Councillor. And I would say that a year and a half later, that's a perfect question to be asking since the establishment of the unit of culture affairs. I think we should offline a little bit because I think this is a great opportunity for them to reconnect with the councilors so that there could be more of the specific constituent needs that you may be experiencing and that we are experiencing, and that I think there's a ripe opportunity for that. As for professional development opportunities and other things that they may need or resources, something that we're exploring for next year is having them work more directly with policy teams in other departments so that we're including, right? It's beyond language access, right? We're including more of that cultural competence lens into the design of different policies and programs. And so we'd love to invite you to those conversations as well, but that's something that we definitely want to explore for FY26.
I think that's a great idea because you said it's not just about language access, it's just about cultural understanding of what those community needs. Sometimes they're the only ones that, let's say, they not that they trust, but they have access to, and they're the ones telling them, hey, you guys should be doing this, and maybe the cultural liaisons are not part of those conversations yet.
Right.
So I would love to see that. I kind of want to ask a more general question for all of you in the room. What do you think will make your jobs easier? If you were to say, if we had this line item, if we had this resource, it would make our jobs a little easier right now. And don't be shy.
I think of time as a resource.
Time.
A bit of time and space to coalesce with those of us who are hurting and those of us who are experiencing all the weight, have been experiencing the weight of the world for many years, to also educate the public. The work that we do is not some scary thing. We're not trying to harm anybody else. We're just trying to help you understand that for years, our communities have been neglected. and that there is an opportunity and a responsibility for different institutions, such as government, to do things a little bit differently. But that's my ask of the world, not just of you. Just a little bit more time would be great.
Right. Thank you for that. Either of you?
I'll say for us, it would be having racial equity embedded across all city departments, and I think we're working towards that. We work closely with a number of city departments. We have standing meetings, and so I think that would make my job easier. And then I think ultimately for kind of black men and boys to receive the same opportunity as everyone else in the city of Boston to thrive.
Yes, sir.
With women being 56% of the population in Boston, I think I would echo Frank's sentiments that we're affected in sort of all of the different walks of Boston, so an appreciation for that. My personal, no, I'll leave it at that.
Sure.
I think everyone needs access to mental health resources. As we sort of feel more pressures from all of the things that are surrounding us, it's going to dictate how people cope with the world.
And I know this is taking into your time, but I do want to acknowledge what I said at the beginning. I really appreciate you all starting with our cabinet first. My hope is that you take some of the learnings from today throughout the rest of the journey of the budget and encourage our colleagues to continue working with us through the technical assistance program or the different programming that we offer. And so, I think this is also you're doing your part as well. So thank you.
Thank you. And I know my time is up, but I just want to say thank you. And thank you for mentioning mental health. Don't ever think about leaving that one out. It's a big one, and it's a really important one for me too. So I'll be advocating for this on this side of the thing. So that's it for me, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Council Pepin. And yeah, the idea of starting with that equity is we want to start, the budget conversation with equity because we want equity to be centered in all of our conversations when we're meeting with different departments. So that was the thought process on starting with the equity cabinet and the equity department. I do want to thank, everyone in your cabinet and everyone here for all your work. I believe that this is what this cabinet and these departments have and can continue to make a major impact in the lives of all Bostonians. Because I think when you make a deliberate effort to reduce the disparities, whether it's in LGBTQ+, black males, women advancement, you improve the lives of all Boston residents. So like my questions are always going to be rooted just solely in that, right? Improving the city of Boston and reducing disparities. My first question is around the executive order that was signed in 2019 by Mayor Walsh. I also want to just give a big shout out to Carolyn Crockett and also Lori Nelson. But the executive order that was signed was on racial equity and leadership, where the city pledged to address racial, economic, and social inequities in a systematic way. Some of the key highlights were every city department must participate in racial equity and leadership training program, so the training wasn't voluntary. Apply racial equity tools in policy development and operations. Set racial equity goals, apply a racial equity framework to their work, and report on their progress. Departments were also directed to review current and proposed policies through a racial equity lens. The executive order, went into effect immediately and stays active unless it's been superseded. So my question is, has there been an ordinance or another executive order that supersedes this one? And then the follow-up is, if not, where do we stand with meeting these goals?
No ordinance or executive order has superseded this one. the focus has been the implementation of the work. Unfortunately, Dr. Crockett was not able to be in the role for as long as I know that she could have done an incredible job here. And the moment I got appointed, I recognized that that was something that we needed to implement. And 3 years later, happy to share that while it is not mandatory, because there are many hurdles to making trainings mandatory, we are implementing an audit into our E&I Academy to ensure that we are applying a racial equity lens to the curriculum that is already being presented to staff. In fact, we work directly with the Public Health Commission and their ORESI office, Racial Equity Office, to ensure that they're doing a social determinants of health through a racial equity lens training at the beginning of that academy, and then people graduate after 6 sessions. I think something that I feel very strongly about, and our mayor feels strongly about, it's not only the responsibility of the equity cabinet, and so if you see initiatives such as the Live Long Well program from the Public Health Commission, et cetera, something that we are a part of as well, is looking at these racial equity and racial disparity, and ensuring that we are setting those goals and metrics to make the change. But I recognize your question, and the answer is we haven't restructured in a legislative way.
Got it. But was there a time that the Real Equity or the Real program, Real Equity and Leadership Training Program, offered to all city departments?
My understanding is that prior to Mayor Wu's swearing ceremony, there was about 10 months of this work, and there were some issues, some equity issues around like folks that work at night at parks and not having access to computers and being able to sit down in private and take these really hard trainings, right? And so lots of lessons learned there, and why the Academy offers so many different pathways for people to participate in, rather than just like a sit-down mandatory 3-hour training. So that was implemented, and we took those lessons and Lori has been a part of these Academy as well, to make sure that we're not reinventing the wheel.
Right, and then one of the major parts was previously, I believe every city employee went through the training, and now it is voluntary.
Not everybody was able to go through it, no. It was not, I think it reached about 3,000. I would have to give you a specific number,
Okay.
but not everybody was able to. It was mandatory, but not everybody was able to take it, because 18,000 people in an organization is a different operational beast.
Right, and I think given the time, I believe that this type of training is critical, and that we reach as many city employees as possible. And if that is making it mandatory, I believe that is the work. And then also when it comes to like the racial equity tools and then the framework, do you know where departments are with that part of the executive order?
So I would perhaps rephrase the question of where we are with that work. We are not like, we're not designing our programming specific to that executive order under Mayor Walsh. But I can speak on where we are with the different goals and initiatives that are happening throughout the city. As you heard, you have specific work that BMA is doing with the equity study, and through the larger E&I manager coordination network, we now have 11 cabinets out of I should know the number to this, that have somebody who is meeting on a monthly basis to discuss, to brainstorm, to do a community of practice around issues that they're noticing on a day-to-day basis. And so I think that is where I would want to spend more time on, because that work is already happening, and that trust has already been built, and these are experts in their specific field that are also going through our trainings of equity and inclusion and are able to speak the same language in that way.
Right. No, and I hear that, but then I also see, the city and contracting disparity studies, right, and how that centered data, and through that data, right, we were able to get a sheltered market program where we have addressed the issue and have started to increase the amount of city contracting that we were able to award MWBEs. So I think, yes, the day-to-day, but also the systematic way on how to solve the problem, I believe is critical. And also, we have seen past efforts, right? Past efforts and the strategy on how to make sure that we are able to lay the foundation to provide a tool that we can change and reduce these disparities. Councilor Durkin, do you have a second round of questions?
Yeah, I just
Yep.
had one more thing. Thank you so much, Chair. I just wanted to say I was really happy to hear the mention of mental health because that was my maiden speech, was about mental health for city workers. And I'm really pleased that my office is putting together a wellness series for city workers. So we have some really cool ideas, and I hope that my council colleagues and I will reach out to all the departments to let them know about it. But the goal is to just have a group of like 30 to 45 people all figuring a way to like meditate, dance, bike, or do yoga together. So we're working on that, and hopefully we'll do a small pilot this spring and summer, and then we'll get to do something more robust in the fall. But it's definitely something that I've noticed as an elected official, getting to see all of these amazing city workers really rise to the challenge of what constituents need from them, but often that means constituents sometimes being abusive, sometimes really not respecting boundaries and other things. And I think the city creating sort of almost an ERG-like space for mental health and for wellness, I think is really important. So we're hoping to just sort of like pilot that. I have been very much in favor of finding space for a small city hall gym, which I know there isn't a space yet for that. So so we'll see. But I just wanted to say I really love that mention, and it really does cut across all departments, and all of our workers really deserve a space and an opportunity to recreate, meditate, and do everything they need to do in this building to bring their best self to the job. So, so thank you all. And I just, seems a little off topic, but because we all have people that work in our departments that, like, you know, would benefit from there being some sort of opportunity. I think it'll be really fun. Yeah, there's going to be a cherry blossom bike ride, maybe a tour of a really famous building in Boston. And so we'll see. But thank you. And yeah, it's nice to know that some of the connections that are made in these hearings can turn into other things too. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you. All right. Now I'm going to go to public testimony. I hear that we have 2 people signed up for public testimony online. Oh, no longer online. Just double check. Don't think let anybody know. All right. Okay. We will now have a round of public testimony. You could testify either in person or via Zoom. If you'd like to testify virtually, please sign up in advance using the link below. After you have signed up, you'll be provided with the hearing Zoom link. Please make sure you are signed up into Zoom with the full name you signed up with to help us call on you appropriately. If you'd like to testify in person, please sign up on the sheet near the chamber entrance. And when your name is called to testify, please step forward and introduce yourself into the microphone. Participants will be called on in the order they signed up, and we'll have 2 minutes to testify. We'll go online. Kelly Vieira, the floor is now yours.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'd like to thank the chair and the committee for the opportunity to speak today about the state of fair housing in Boston. My name is Kelly Vieira. I'm a resident of Brighton. I'm also the Director of Investigations and Outreach at the Housing Discrimination Testing Program, which is part of Suffolk University's Center for Housing Justice and Policy. Prior to joining Suffolk in 2020, I served the Commonwealth as a Middlesex Assistant District Attorney. The Housing Discrimination Testing Program, together with the Accelerator Practice Clinic at Suffolk Law, receives hundreds of complaints each year from victims of housing discrimination all over the greater Boston area. We provide legal representation to victims of housing discrimination at the Boston Fair Housing Commission, the Massachusetts Commission Against Discrimination, in Housing Court and in Superior Court. For over a decade, we've been able to provide free fair housing education, outreach, and testing services throughout greater Boston. For anyone unfamiliar, testing is like secret shopping for the rental market. It's an investigative tool that we use to learn how housing providers are treating people based on characteristics like whether they have children or if they're using a housing subsidy. Through our testing, we're able to obtain additional evidence that supports discrimination claims in our legal clinic, or alternatively, testing can also exonerate people and show that discrimination is not occurring, which of course we like to see. Additionally, our testing can help us measure the frequency of discrimination that's happening in a certain area or for a particular group of people. For example, in 2020, we released a study called Qualified Renters Need Not Apply. In that study, we measured rates of discrimination against renters attempting to use housing vouchers in the Boston area. And the study found that housing providers discriminated against voucher holders almost 90% of the time. As a result of that study, I was brought on to lead a testing project in partnership with the City of Boston's Office of Fair Housing and Equity from 2020 through 2022. This partnership resulted in a great increase of agency-initiated complaints filed by OFHE to the Boston Housing Commission, Fair Housing Commission, and over $66,000 in settlements that went either back to the city or to local nonprofits. However, this fair housing work has been primarily supported through funding from Congress, appropriated through the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, through an initiative called the Fair Housing Initiatives Program, or FIP. That funding is now under threat. It's that funding that's been targeted for termination, and this is the situation that we're in Boston, where our program, for example, has 2 grant applications that have been pending since November with HUD, and we do not expect to be awarded those grants. This means that there's no fair housing initiative work happening in Boston right now. The only fair housing testing that we're able to do right now is related to other projects, and we don't have the capacity to respond to all the testing needs throughout the city, or to do these type of audit testing or research-based testing that I discussed earlier. Our testing has established that discrimination based on characteristics like race and housing subsidies are extremely high. Without your support, the work that we've been able to do for over a decade now might end, and therefore we ask that the committee support fair housing and include funding for our work in the city's budget. Including $200,000 for the Housing Discrimination Testing Program will allow us to continue our work toward ensuring that individuals and families in Boston have the equal access to housing that they deserve, regardless of their race, their use of a housing subsidy, or any other protected characteristic. Thank you so much for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Kelly. We'll go back to counselors for second rounds of questions. I'll start off with a few questions for BMA. Can you just provide a little bit more detail on, and just remind the public about the equity study, what's in it, timeline, scope of work, and then after the equity study is done, what are your next steps? Okay. Bless you. Bless you.
Yeah, so the equity study is a comprehensive assessment of data related to Black men and boys and how they are served by City of Boston policy, programs, services. Its findings will inform equitable, data-driven, and impactful strategies to improve outcomes and guide future investments within the City of Boston. So for phase 1, we're at the beginning stages. We are kind of at an 8 to 9 month timeline. And then once we make it through phase 1, the outcomes for phase 1 will kind of guide phase 2, which is more lead to kind of recommendations for action across city departments. And so we're 8 months away from being able to release the final report for phase one. So we're in the initial process where we're, within the next week, we're going to be launching a survey. We're going to be doing one-on-ones. We're going to have some focus groups. We're working with the Black Men and Boys Commission, different groups, city departments. On this study, we have a research firm led by some researchers that are connected to Boston University and Harvard. And then we also brought on Dr. Rufus Falk, who's leading the community engagement support for the equity study.
Awesome. And then I know that there are term limits on the commission members. I believe they serve in 2, 3, and 4-year terms. Can you talk to me about what the status is, and also if commission members' terms are coming to an end, what would that process look like?
Yep. So we have a few commissioners whose terms end at the end of June. So the process is through the Black Men and Boys Commission. We have a list of over 400 individuals that applied to be on the commission initially. We had another kind of referral form that we shared out. Several commissioners referred individuals as well. And so the commission will be meeting to kind of compile that list and identify recommendations for appointment. And then ultimately the mayor kind of makes the final decision of who's appointed to serve on the commission.
Awesome. And then women advancement. I know we've done work in the past with maternal and infant health grants. I know that a lot of this work has moved over to the Boston Public Health Commission. Can you just speak to your involvement in the collaboration between BPHC and your department?
So we work with BPHC on a couple of different areas. So to your point, the maternal health grants, we've been involved with the Kofi project, which has been sort of expanding the doulas. So we work closely with them around that. And also, like I said, with the gender-based violence prevention initiative, we were sort of instrumental in sort of helping pick that director. We've helped sort of sponsor the survey that they're doing amongst practitioners, and really looking forward to working with them around gender-based violence outcomes in Boston.
Awesome. And then there's a $50,000 line item for emergency employees in FY25 and FY26. Can you speak to what that is for?
Well, I walked into FY25, so I took that money and used it for grants. We split it, one for the violence prevention with community safety, and the other with LGBTQ2IAS plus advancement.
Got it. And I guess this is for everyone on the panel. How many policy recommendations has each department, the cabinet, provided to the administration? And then also budget recommendations.
I'd have to get back to you on our specific policy recommendations to the.
I'll go. So through our office in partnership with our commission for FY25, I believe we have over 20 policy and budget recommendations totaling $34 million for FY26.
Got it. And has that been shared with the council?
Yes, it's public document, and we're actually releasing our next quarterly report this week, so I'll make sure you have a follow-up with the itemized breakdown of what's recommended, and then also what the mayor kind of included in the budget for FY26 across multiple departments in the city.
Yeah, that would be great to have as we dive into more department hearings. Yeah, and I just want to encourage, the whole cabinet and all departments to produce any recommendations, budget investments, for the council, as you know, we wanted to start with equity, center equity in all of our departmental hearings. I guess my other question is around, it looks like or sounds like we're going to be centralizing some major, I guess, responsibilities inside of the cabinet. One of them looks like communications. Do you have a comm-specific person at each equity department? Or how do you plan on, talk to me and explain that strategy. How do you have one person centralized to speak to so many different communities?
Yeah, no, so the issue is that for 3 years, there has not been comms at every single department.
Okay.
Some departments have it, some departments don't,
Yep.
and we've been trying to figure out a way to be more fair. And in a space where we are not getting new vacancies, we are instead opting for a pathway where we get 3 to 4 experts in comms, marketing, outreach to better serve, right? You think of a space where they're sort of like how budget analysts work for OBM, similar to that, because we are 8 departments. So we're not laying anyone off. If there happened to be a vacancy, we are taking it to ensure that we're centralizing. So now, thanks to the absorption of a position from MOA, we now can help language access, who didn't have a comms person, women's advancement, who doesn't have a comms person, and LGBTQ that doesn't have a comms person. Whereas before, they just weren't, and we had to continue to scramble in finding the resources.
Got it. And staying on the structure, we have equity ambassadors that are trained through the Equity Academy, equity network managers, and then within the cabinet, we have executive directors who are the heads of departments within inside of the equity cabinet. Equity ambassadors are city employees from across departments who go through the Equity Academy. Equity network managers, and I think I'm getting the name right, are working within departments in the mayor's office, and currently in the mayor's office of Housing and Human Services, while executive directors are collaborating across departments. Can you just break down the specific responsibilities and expectations of network managers versus the executive directors?
Many differences. So one easy way to differentiate would be, whereas our department heads are experts in the specific field and also can do everything else, the equity inclusion manager are experts in the specific function of that cabinet. So you can think of Colleen Fonseca, who is our E&I manager for housing, right? An expert in the space of housing developers that already brings that expertise, is already connected to the space of housing, and then is coming to the E&I cabinet for direct feedback, direct advice, direct brainstorming opportunities. So that's, whereas our department heads offer that expert, they come to a department and say, we are noticing a gap in this particular issue, with this particular work that you're providing. Can we provide some technical assistance? And then we do it that way. That's one of the major splits.
All right, and then following up on that question, I know that we have one in the mayor's office of housing.
Yeah.
And can you talk to me about the role the equity network manager played in the anti-displacement report? And I ask this only because we know housing is one of the major priorities. However, in that report, the equity cabinet wasn't listed as a contributor.
Yeah. So we'll make sure to talk to the team about that. Our team was a part of many of the working groups that were a part of the earlier conversation. So I think that's just an administrative oversight there. Colleen was not in the role yet when that anti-displacement work began. But there are different initiatives that she is working on, again, from our advice and directly from the expertise of the Mayor's Office of Housing.
Okay. And I know there's some ongoing work in housing, whether it's Article 80, Squares and Streets, Welcome Home Boston Phase 3. Can you talk to me about, is there like an analysis component? Are they, the equity network manager meeting with, every department head? Like, can you talk to me about like how that work?
Yeah, so some of the initiatives you mentioned are coming from the planning department, and Luis Frias is the representative of the planning department. So like the anti-displacement work and all that, that is what used to be BPDA, now planning. Luis Frias is a part of the network, and a lot of the work originally was focused on like staff diversity. And so little by little, we're starting to transition that work because of the network into changes in like how the work is done, which is the vision of the work rather than staff oriented, right? We've always been really intentional about, we're not focused on staff diversity, we're focused on the outcomes of the work. And then when it comes to things like Welcome Home Boston, et cetera, we're in selection committees often. One of the main ways in which we participate in other agencies' work is we either get consulted for the write-up of contracts, RFPs, et cetera, or we're in selection committees for that. We definitely help with that targeted outreach on purpose because of the communities that we're connected to. So that's oftentimes how that work does show up. But as for an analysis, no, not yet.
Got it. And then speaking about RFP and selection committees, do you have a list, of how many selection committees the equity cabinet has been a part of? And I guess BMA and women's advancement, can you guys speak to how many selection committees on RFPs you guys have been a part of outside of your cabinet?
As far as, I'll have to kind of look into it, but I don't believe our office has been a part of any RFP selection committees.
So we've been a part of committees inside of the cabinet.
But not outside?
No.
I could definitely get you a list of where we've been pulled in the different, in the last 3 years. And we do, so just to make the clear distinction here, we do review, now when we say we, not all department heads, right? So I want to make that very clear. But I and 2 people of the E&I leadership department sit in the grant approval process. It does not get shown to the mayor until it's been approved by us. And then when relevant, we bring it to the different department heads of like, hey, so-and-so department is doing this, and we bring it to the different departments that are here. As for RFPs, that's a little bit different. I can definitely get you access to that data.
All right. I know Councilor Flynn mentioned the Human Rights Commission. You spoke about bringing in a consultant, and some concerns around, or kind of revisioning, right? Creating a new vision for the Department of Human Rights Commission. I know that this department it was established by an ordinance. Can you elaborate more on like what the goal for the consultant around the Human Rights Commission is?
The ordinance is pretty explicit and vague at the same time about what it's meant to do. And so we are bringing in consultants to help us better apply those principles of human rights that are laid out in the ordinance into the work that we do. Hopefully with the intention of not having yet another department working in a silo, but rather embedded throughout the work that we do, which is why it's taking us a little bit longer, because there is an ordinance in place, but that's the intention there.
Got it. And do we have a timeline on consultant? Like, it sounds like we've chosen a consultant?
Yeah. We're very close to getting the recommendations. And at the 2 p.m., I can come back to you with the specific time on when we expect the final recommendations.
Got it. Shifting back over to Executive Director Farrow, Black Men Lead. I was able to hire one of my staffers, one of my team members, who's still with the city through Black Men Lead. Saw a lot of, people excited about the program and learning a lot. Talk to me about the future of the program.
So we kind of took a brief pause on the program as kind of through the council, there was a request to see about bringing that to a fully in-house program. So we're in conversation with the Office of Civic Organizing to see kind of what their capacity is and what role they can play in partnership. But our goal is to relaunch both Black Men Lead and Young Black Leaders later this spring.
Awesome. That's great to hear. I guess this question's for the entire panel. Which disparities stand out in terms of increasing year after year? And then how is each department tackling these issues? And then I guess, I could give some examples, all right? Black men experience the highest rate of opioid-related death, the ongoing epidemic of higher suicide rates among LGBTQIA+ young people, and then just the 23-year gap in life expectancy between different areas of the city. Talk to me about the disparities, the cabinet and your departments are seeing that have increased year over year, and then some initiatives or investments we're making towards those.
I'm happy to start. As far as kind of health outcomes for kind of Black men, we know Black men have the lowest life expectancy, highest rate for drug overdose, homicide, and so preventable cancers. So we're working closely with the Health Commission, not only for targeted outreach, but around their Live Long Well campaign to make sure that we're supporting them, but also intentional around where the resources are going. If we are the most impacted, then there needs to be an intentional focus on addressing those disparities. So we're working closely with the Health Commission on addressing those disparities. And through the budget, there are some budget increases in the Health Commission directly targeting some of the disparities that I just mentioned. So in FY26, we plan to have a more kind of a deeper partnership around addressing some of these disparities. And there's at least 2 individuals on the Health Commission side that are kind of point people to work closely with our office and the commission around these disparities.
Awesome.
I think you've been leading on this issue, particularly around Black maternal health care. It's one of the disparities that I think has started to get the attention that it deserves, that we work with Boston Public Health Commission around that. And then the other one that I guess our office was built on and stays focused on is economic equity and the gender pay gap. While we've been working to be able to close some of the things around the higher earners, we have not been able to sort of make the movement within the city around the lower wage workers, and that's what we're looking to sort of focus on.
And while these wonderful experts next to me and the folks you're going to hear at 2 p.m. focus on specific populations, the Equity and Inclusion Office is more focused on a cultural shift of the larger administration, a larger city of Boston, larger municipality, of how do we not look at a service just for the sake of, we fill potholes, for example, but be able to look at data, whose potholes are being filled at what time, et cetera. Sorry, not what time, but how quickly, effectively they are. And so that is, and we lean into the advice and the expertise of these different departments.
Awesome. And then, let me know if you want to, all right. Going back to the E&I Academy and the Equity Ambassadors, I know 120 have graduated. I think that's amazing work. Can you talk to me, what does follow-up look like? And then how is the cabinet measuring how training is actually translating into more equitable practices across departments, especially in the frontline services?
Yeah, I think I have and I hope that I do our team right, but there's a unique example of how these different initiatives that may sound very similar are actually working together in alignment very well. folks that worked in BCYF centers or in other departments in the Human Services Cabinet who participated in the E&I Academy. With that knowledge, with those resources, we're able to identify clear gaps in the work that is happening in pools, in centers. And so part of why we're doing some of the work around adaptive swimming is because of the learning that happened in the E&I Academy. And now Latasha, who is our E&I manager in Human Services, is leading in that charge between disabilities and BCYF centers, right? And so the beauty, if you will, 120 staff members when there's 18,000 staff members is not really the selling point here. The selling point is that there's now 120 people that have what they need to identify bigger gaps, have the trust of their colleagues, and have a network to come back to and identify pathways for some transformational change. So that's just like one little example of how that's happening.
Right. And are you able to share with us, the council, the curriculum that's? Yeah. Awesome.
It'd be great if even some of the staff could participate and we can get additional feedback in the future too.
Absolutely. Shifting gears a little, I know this is not on, like we're not bringing forward the literacy task force, but it is part of your cabinet. There's been talk of hiring a data expert to validate and to analyze existing sources. Can you talk to me where are we in that process of bringing on that data expert? And based on the last meeting, it sounded like the funding had been secured. So just want to just kind of hear the timeline.
I don't want to misspeak. If it's okay with you, I want to get back to you. We have brought in at different fiscal years external support to keep the work going. This was a request without specific staff allocation, and so we are trying to figure out how to get this external resource. But let me get back to you on the specifics on that.
Got it. And just want to acknowledge the work. I believe it was 2021 council that helped pass that ordinance to establish that literacy task force. And just kind of, the website, I believe all of the meetings do not have recordings. I know they're meeting minutes. It being a literacy task force, I think it's important for accessibility to have recordings online of all meetings, past and future. And then also, there was no schedule for upcoming meetings listed on the task force. So just want to make sure that we're posting all relevant information.
Yep. We will, and at the 2 p.m., because I'm just jogging my memory now, that work has been transitioned to the Language Access and Communications team. Mm-hmm. And so Jennifer, when she's here at 2 p.m., she will be able to answer more of these specific questions.
Okay. I want to acknowledge that we have been joined by Council President Louis Jen. I'll turn the floor over to Council President.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and my apologies to the cabinet, because I know that you're probably, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Chair, you are probably wrapping up.
Oh, no.
Oh, you weren't? Okay.
Just getting started.
Okay, all right. Well, I want to say thank you to all of you for being here. I really was rushing to get here after some morning commitments, because I just wanted to thank you all for the incredible work that you do. I want to thank you, Dana, Executive Director of Women's Advancement, for being here for our hearing on Friday. I think there's incredible opportunity for the work and growth of the office to really be thinking about how do we work with Office of Community Safety, with different offices, with BPHC, to think about how do we do the work of eradicating all forms of violence, with intimate partner violence, domestic violence being at the root of a lot of the different forms of violence. So I hopefully that I guess that's like sort of a question towards you, because you weren't on the panel. If you'd like to talk a little bit about, if you think that there's room for that type of work within women's advancement.
Absolutely. We talked earlier about how we wanted to expand our programming into girls, and a lot of that goes into the prevention. I think that we talked about, that was talked about on Friday with BPHC, and intentionally including them in those spaces. We have also a grant we're collaborating with Community Safety for a grant specifically around young girls' violence prevention, and are looking forward to including that all in FY26 and to expand on the partnership with BPHC.
Great. I'm excited about that because I think that this could be, well, not excited is the wrong word, but I think that this is like an opportunity.
Yes.
For the office to lean into really important work, even around like public education and things of that nature. So, and it, the executive director of the new program over at BPHC, I think there's a lot of energy to work on these issues in a cross-sectoral way that I think is really helpful. So, okay, that's my question for you. And welcome,
Thank you.
Welcome on board. I know that you haven't hit your year mark yet.
Not yet.
No. So welcome on board. One of my morning meetings was with someone who is a grantee from your office, Frank, Director Farrow, the Office of Black Male Advancement, and I just want to thank you for the work that you do as a steady voice in the city about the need for us to be investing more dollars and resources into our Black men and boys. So I want to thank you for that. I want to talk about what challenges, given do you see yourself the office still being able to provide grants next year? And two, do you believe that there's an opportunity or an ability to deepen the grants? And the reason why I ask is because we've already been, just this morning alone, 3 different organizations that are going to be Black-run, Black-led, that center Black men and boys, organizations that facing funding cuts from either us, the Boston Public Schools, or from the federal government. And so they come and they ask, what are the additional sources of funding? And I'm wondering what, of course, Black communities get hit the worst. I'm wondering sort of like what planning, and if anyone has asked any of these questions already, I apologize, but I just wanted to sort of get an understanding.
Thank you. I'll share that. I think initially our goal with the grants were to have a deeper investment to the organizations that we're funding. But we saw kind of last year with some of the state budget cuts to some of our organizations that we're giving smaller grants to more organizations because we know how great the need is. And I think ideally, where we're heading for next fiscal year is looking at, potentially for some philanthropy partnerships, some matching grants. So not only we can give kind of the funds that we're giving, but we can identify external sources to increase the amount that are going to organizations that are doing the work to improve outcomes for Black men and boys in the city. I think, in FY26, we are projecting to have the same $500,000 allocation for grants.
And how many organizations, so that was the allocation this year, and how many organizations received grant funding?
53.
Okay.
And so, if you kind of do the math, we're able to fund more organizations, but it's less money. And so I think our work now is like, how do we identify other external resources? We have a technical assistance program to help organizations identify other opportunities for grant funding, local, state, federal, philanthropy, that not only every organization that we're funding, but even the organizations we're not funding, this year we opened it up for them to receive technical support to help with their storytelling, help locate funding. And so we have over 100 organizations that's involved with our Capacity Building Institute this year.
100 external partnerships?
Community, yep.
Awesome.
So we funded 53, then we have an additional 50 that we did not fund that kind of need a little more support. So ideally that they'll go through this technical assistance, strengthen their work, help better tell their story, show their impact, so they can then come back to us, other city departments, and go to external resources for funding as well.
Okay. Thank you. Can I ask if you were to, the 3 substantive issues that your office deals with the most, what are they?
I would say pathways, so college and career pathways for youth, housing, there's 4, housing, employment, opportunities, economic opportunity, and health.
Health,
So
okay.
mental health, physical health for Black men.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for all the work that you do. Thank you for bringing our young kids to City Hall a few weeks ago, and really enjoyed having them in chambers. So I hope that you know that you have folks here on the City Council who really believe in your work and in the work of your office and are standing ready to support.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, just so that I clarify, the offices that are covered in this hearing are the Office of Women's Advancement, the Office of Black Male Advancement, the Office of Fair Housing and Equity.
And then the cabinet.
Oh, then the cabinet as a whole. Okay, great. I have some questions to the Office of Fair Housing and Equity. Hi, Chief. Thanks for being with us. And just want to, continue to lament the passing of Bob Terrell, who was a visionary in this space, working on issues of fair housing. Wondering what kind of testing the Office of Fair Housing is doing now. He was a champion of fair testing, which is the gold standard of testing in all sorts of housing discrimination. And wondering what kind of testing we're doing right now.
Much of the day-to-day operations have not stopped in the office, but many of the projects and the vision that Bob had had to stall. I said earlier that we are going to be doing a search for the new person very soon, and our hope is to my intention is to continue his vision of bringing back the testing program. And also we need to make sure that we have the right leadership in that team. So we'll make sure to come back to you all with a job description.
What does the team look like right now?
We have a team of investigators. I'm gonna get this wrong potentially, but we have 4 investigators, and we have a small team of outreach engagement, as well as a deputy and a director of investigations.
Has the office thought about what enforcement or what investigation is going to look like in light of the fact that HUD is less likely going to be engaged in this type of work?
Yes, and I would like to maybe have a more in-depth conversation with the right staff that can answer a lot of the questions that you had here.
Okay, then I think a lot of my other questions are probably not.
Yeah, I would love to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
We are keeping an eye on all those items. We are definitely confident that the work can continue in FY25. 6 and 7. But definitely would want to make sure that one of the persons in charge of the actual budget book can have a real conversation with you about this.
I guess one last question. Do you know if we're seeing an increase in the number of complaints that we're getting as a city when it comes to housing, fair housing discrimination, or a decrease, or is it flatlined?
It's been flatlined partially because our outreach in the last couple of months has been low, given our loss. But the moment we get back outside, it will be back up as expected.
Just because I think of course, there's fair housing needs when it comes to a number of issues, when it comes to appraisals, when it comes to rentals. But I know a lot of my colleagues have also talked about how it matters for folks who have vouchers, and it is a big issue, right? It's an issue that we see all the time as counselors, people unable to place their vouchers, and a lot of that is because they're facing discrimination. With the gold standard of pair testing, you really sort of get at that issue, which is why I want to make sure that we continue to champion what is not only Bob Terrell's vision, but what is in the industry is seen as the best practice, which is pair testing, to make sure that, we shouldn't just give up on the issue. We should do what we know works, and I hope that we can do more investments in that. I know that this body has advocated for that. We advocated for that last budget, and so hoping to actually see that come to fruition.
Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Those are my questions for now.
Thank you. Just have a few more questions. I'll start off with the Reparations Task Force. Can you talk to me about the timeline and where are we currently?
The Phase 1 report will be submitted to the city in the summertime, and our hope is to come back to the community with a report that the task force has read and provided commentary for no later than September.
Got it. And then after September, what's the goal?
That is when technically the task force is having a lot of conversations about what that phase is going to look like, but that's technically the phase where there's some in-depth analysis of what the report says so that they can come back to us with a Phase 3, which are the specific recommendations. And while ideally we would love to give you a specific timeline, the task force is taking a step back and understanding what that's going to look like given all the changes at national level as well.
All right. And then I guess you kind of answered this. This question is for BMA around the funding of nonprofits, but has the amount, or how are you able to fund? Has that amount changed? And if it hasn't, if it has, can you tell me how it's changed? And then how are you, like, do you have where are you funding all these grants from? Like, are you moving it around? Like, talk to me how this happens.
So I think the only changes from year to year is if we have kind of employee cost savings, then we can add additional funds to grants. But it's in contracted services.
Okay.
So the funding is there, and we know that it's a huge priority. So as we're kind of looking through our budget and our focus, we try to prioritize of what we know kind of is going to help with the most impact, also based off of kind of the advice of our commission, and then what we're seeing in the city as gaps. So the funding is allocated in contracted services in our budget year to year.
Got it, but it's not, was it 500,000?
Correct.
Right, and I don't have the budget book in front of me. Is there 500,000 allocated inside of contracted services?
Is there 500,000 in contract services?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, all right. I thought you was moving in also from.
No, so it's
Personal.
contractors.
more, yeah.
So if we have budget savings from personnel, then
That's
we
how you
can
supplement.
move
That's how you
additional
move it to.
funds.
Got it. I thought that was part of the 500,000.
Yeah. No.
No, it's not. All right, awesome. Putting aside the block grants, can you explain, and this question is for fair housing. Putting aside the block grants, can you explain the other external funding for fair housing and what's that supposed to fund? In FY23, we spent $195,000. In FY24, we spent $338,000, but we're appropriated $803,000 in the current fiscal year, and we're forecasting $755,000 in FY26. Are we on pace to spend all of that $803,000 this year? So it's two questions. And I'm happy to submit it in writing and for you to go back to the team and get the answer for that.
Yeah, because I only have half an answer, but yes, we are on track to spending it, and the federal funding focuses particularly on an investigations arm, which is something that we are keeping track of and are prioritizing as well.
Got it. And I know last year we spoke about when the cabinet and the departments were in front of us, housing was like a major priority for all departments and also the cabinet. And it's also just a major priority for the city and all Boston residents. When we're talking about housing, I feel like there needs to be like a 3 to 5 year, strategy and goal. Can you talk to me about, how you the cabinet plans on addressing housing, knowing that it's a priority for many of your departments?
Besides what we're doing already, and the reason why Colleen Fonseca joined the team is because housing has been the priority since we joined the administration years ago. I would say that we are considering the work of reparations also as an opportunity to explore further systemic changes that need to happen. I know that through the equity study that BMA is doing, we're also going to find some opportunities there for better work. And yeah, we're on the same page here. We talk to housing essentially every single day because of day-to-day constituent needs. But when it comes to the 3 to 5 year plan, part of the work that the manager is doing is, after doing an assessment internally of some of the work that housing is doing, coming back to us and developing these are the specific interventions that we should put in place within compliance that can get us to better outcomes for the communities.
Got it. You just said that, there's an assessment of the work that housing is doing. Are they assessing, like, one thing that comes to my mind is there is a policy shift in the deed restrictions, whether we're lifting them, whether they're shortening the timeframes. And I'm fully supportive, just want to be on record, of deed restrictions because I believe they are one of the strongest tools we have to help low to moderate income buyers purchase a home here in the city of Boston. In a city where you need around $174,000 to afford a home sale price. So when you're talking about assessment, is this one of the programs or policies that the Equity Network Manager is assessing to see what the impacts, it would have on communities that the cabinet and your department serve?
Yeah. If it's okay with the council, I would love to submit after this hearing some of the specific things that we are looking into in partnership with Mayor's Office of Housing.
Okay. And if this is not on the list, I definitely want to put this on the radar. Can you talk to me about the status of the Indigenous Communities Cabinet and where we're at on that?
So Amira Madison, who was our 2+ year long fellow in that role, is no longer with us. She's doing bigger, better things, and we are considering either putting out a grant to support the continuation of that work, or hiring within the vacancies that already exist, obviously, for that specific position.
Okay. And looking back, there has been a good amount of work around equity here in the city of Boston. There have been a lot of studies and reports that have been issued. One, just name a few: Resilient Boston, an Equitable and Connected City. There has been, Imagine Boston 2030, which speaks to the work that is needed for equity. And then also, there's another report called The Blueprint. How do you take a look at all this work or in strategies and base future work off of?
Really, I'm sure you're going to hear about this tomorrow from Chief Idowu, but a lot of the work of equity is also centered on economic justice, and we're really excited to be partnering with them in this new strategic plan development to ensure that we are developing a different vision for what economic justice is in the city of Boston and prosperity. And I know that through that work, part of the partnership, part of the contract is that people are looking at all these already existing, to your point, reports, studies have happened so that we're not reinventing the wheel and instead are merging all these different efforts. But Chief Idowu will probably speak on this tomorrow.
Right, and then sometimes we hear from residents when we're going back asking them the same question, like, wait, you guys have this report, you have this information, just build off of that. So I just want to also just encourage that a lot of this work, a lot of these studies and reports are out there, and some of these strategies have been proven. Do you have more questions? Council President Louis-Jen?
I don't. I just wanted to underscore, I'm looking at this comment letter that we received from Suffolk University, and they have a housing discrimination testing program, and they're just urging us as a city to act because they were funded by the Housing Initiatives Program, known as FHIP, from HUD, and they were really the only ones doing fair housing, and they are really worried that right now at this moment there's no housing testing happening in the city of Boston, and so just wanted to elevate how important it is for us to continue to work on this where others are falling short.
Sure.
All right. Couple more questions and we'll get you guys out of here. The cabinet's the panel out of here. Can you talk to me about policy experts and how they work in collaboration across 8 departments?
I'll kick it off, and I will say, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of the issues that we run into are operational. There are so many departments that for many years have been working in silos, and so having to build a muscle of collaborating has not been the easiest. Under our Deputy Chief of policy and programming on lit, and the team that we're building there with Kenneth Moles as the racial justice advisor, and Lori and Natalia, who looks at economic mobility. They have a bi-weekly sit down with the policy experts at each of the departments here, so that we're hearing directly from them, like what they're keeping track of in the day-to-day stuff that's happening at the federal level and even globally sometimes. Vice versa, we are feeding them information of like what we're hearing from other cabinets. And then where we're trying to take them now, take our team is how do we mobilize together and push forward on similar policies, right? Because I think that collective voice is going to be essential in the coming years.
Awesome. And one thing that I am able to take a part of is, the Black and Males Commission, and sometimes I feel like every department should have a commission arm. I guess, Frank, if you could just speak to the value of the commission and how it has helped you in your work.
I'll say that the commission is made up of kind of, Black men that are kind of experts through lived experience, educational experience, work experience in the various priority issue areas. So they provide a great deal of knowledge, and it extends the arms that we have in the office for the specific areas that we're working on, to provide us kind of guidance and support. And so the commission for us is extremely helpful because for a lot of the targeted areas, not only are they kind of experts, but they have the kind of community relationships and partnerships to engage and kind of help us to kind of get more information on where the gaps are, how the community is seeing the work that we're doing, different city departments are doing, and kind of bring that feedback and kind of move it through policy and action.
Awesome. No, and you see it in work, and then you also see it through your policy recommendations and budget recommendations as well. My last question is the Equity Network managers. Are they in decision-making roles?
They report directly to people who make decisions in other cabinets. So either think of deputy chiefs of operations, et cetera, in other places.
Okay, all right. That is all my questions. Council President, you all set?
Sorry, I've disjointed. I have follow-up
Go ahead.
questions.
Yep.
One is a general one that I should have asked at the beginning, and maybe you already covered this by a colleague, from a colleague, so I apologize. But just given the general environment right now on issues involving diversity, equity, and inclusion, initiatives at the federal level, have you seen any tangible impacts on the work that you're doing? And would love, I think that's kind of like, I asked a question about how we're preparing, but have you seen directly sort of impacts on your work?
I'll say for us, we've been kind of navigating kind of the attacks or challenges for race-based initiatives and programs for the past 18 months. So it's not a new challenge for our office, but we've been kind of intentional of continuing the work, following our mission with guidance from kind of our legal department. I think it's something that we're going to continue to deal with, but our office has been navigating for well over the past 18 months, so this isn't new to us in navigating it.
Mm-hmm. And can I ask, especially because some of the organizations, nonprofits that have done outreach to me have stated, like, one of the reasons why they're coming to the city is a change in philanthropic dollars and how folks are, so, and I'm very excited by the possibility that you're going to be able to do match grants with philanthropy that want to do it. I think that would be incredible. Is your understanding that the energy and the desire to still partner with to advance the work of the office is still there, is present in the philanthropic community?
I think those are conversations that are forthcoming, so we're going to be having those soon and hopefully, but we won't know until we have those conversations with philanthropy.
Okay. thank you. And Frank, how big is your office at this point? Like, how many staffers do y'all have?
So we have a staff of 9 currently.
A staff of 9. Okay, thank you. I've enjoyed seeing the growth of your office and the work that you all do. I don't, Director.
I mean, we've seen some of our not-for-profit organizations lose funding, and they've expressed that and the need and sort of the fear that lies ahead of not being able to replace those dollars and to serve the folks that they need to.
I think you'll hear a lot about that at the 2 p.m. With additional constituent service needs and requests. But as I said earlier, the one thing that we are steady on is providing stability in this moment. They are meant, we feel like the intention is to distract us, and I think our role as a municipal government is to ensure that we are available and continuing the work.
Okay. Thank you. Those are my questions.
Can I add something?
Yeah, of course.
I think the only thing I would add is like we do the best with what we can. We don't have the capacity to be the solution for everything and all of the gaps and the needs. And so I think we rely on other city departments through their grant making, and we share that information with all of our community partners as well. So it's going to take a collective, work to kind of make sure that we're providing that support. So everyone is not just looking at the Office of Black Male Advancement or Office of Women's Advancement to kind of plug those gaps. There are a lot of different grant opportunities in the city that we kind of refer to our community partners. And I think it is important for not philanthropy and everyone else that said they cared about racial equity to still center kind of the work and support.
And I will say, in the spirit of sort of just like keeping the transparency, honesty, and Frank, you could probably speak to this more, but about 2 years ago, I had an epiphany, Frank and I had an epiphany about like, people were coming to Black Male Advancement just because that was their first touch point of representation of like a connection to the city of Boston, even though that was not the office that they needed to go to.
They don't know how to access it.
And so much of the work that we are doing in our offices is simply being that trusted bridge. And what we have gotten so much better at is exactly what Frank just said. And so like, I think the more and more we keep doing this, we have this like fight that we want to organize ourselves out of this job. I say 50 years, Frank says 25 years, right? This is a goal. We shouldn't have to be a bridge of trust anymore for a community, but we got to change a lot of the internal work.
Thank you. There's a very nerdy thing where Senator Day O'Connor said she wanted affirmative action to end in the problem would be solved in 25 years, which is why I was like, giving that sly smile, because we see where we are, like it can end and the work can be nowhere near over.
Hopefully.
Just an idea, building off of a bit of what you just said, Chief, but also just taking into account, right, like, you're not the one-stop shop. You shouldn't be.
Correct.
People trust you, right? I understand that 100%. There are, Black people reach out to our office, Haitian people reach out to our office, and we can't, help with these issues, but we are a touch point. I'm wondering if the city, and I know that there are a lot of grant-making opportunities and grants, if there's a comprehensive list that exists of these other grants and the timeline of different offices in the city, and if, especially in this year of federal challenges, of creating that across offices, right? So maybe it won't apply to everyone, right? But maybe it's a Black males art organization, right? Maybe not only could they get funding from you, they could get funding from the Office of Arts and Culture, right? And maybe they work specifically with Black men who are artists who are coming home from incarceration, right? And so I'm just wondering, Tony, no phones. I'm just wondering if there is a way for us to create that comprehensive list. Do we know, I know oftentimes grants are being given out at the end of a fiscal year, but I think a lot of the offices that have been giving out grants, especially Chief in your department, have been giving out grants for the last few years. So wondering if there's a database or collection that we can create on the, to the schedule. You doing that sly smile now, so is that something that we have, something that we're building, something that?
Yeah. So I think when I first came in, through kind of our work with kind of the grants team, that was kind of something that we named the central kind of database. So there is now a webpage on the city's website for grants. We share it out with all of our community partners whenever there's updated. We do our newsletter, we share it out. There's also kind of a list of federal funding, state funding that kind of comes out, but there is now a grants page on the city's website that lists all of the grants. But you have to kind of go look and see what's relevant to you. But I don't think there is anything that says, hey, this quarter, 13 grants for the city are coming out, to be prepared and look out for. But there is at least a city page that lists every grant that's available currently on the city's website.
And this didn't exist 3 years ago. We had more than 14 different ways that we were collecting data around grants. So this, plus the fact that we have one centralized way of granting, it's just not the sexy work that we talk about, but this is part of a lot of the work that we do.
I can find it if you don't have it, but do you have it?
Yeah, we can share it.
Can you send that?
Yeah, there's been a lot of work. The grants team has been kind of great at kind of listening to feedback and looking to kind of resolve and act on the recommendations. So there's a grant page, there's a centralized kind of reporting structure now. So there's been a lot of work that the grants team has done over the past year.
Awesome. And that would include like the reparations task force grants and all of those? Okay, all right, thank you. Those are my questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Council President. Yes, thank you guys again for all your work that you have done. And thank you for the people who have gave public testimony. Thank you to my colleagues. Thank you to Central staff. This hearing on dockets number 0822 through 0830 is adjourned.